Hello, I'm Fernando Miranda, and this is my video for my Family Genogram project. This is a little visual I made. I've got a little legend here. These are my two sets of grandparents, my mother and father, and then me and my wife here. That's the three generations I'm going to be talking about in this video. One major important thing that I think is worth noting right off the bat is that basically no one in my family, the past couple generations, graduated from high school. So none of my grandparents, this is my father's side of the family, Carmilda and Fernando. I'm actually the fourth Fernando, so my father's the third, and then my grandfather's the second. Neither one of them graduated high school. I think my father's mother dropped out in 11th grade, and I think my grandfather actually dropped out even before that. And they were both actually raised in New York. My grandfather here moved from Puerto Rico with his family when he was three, and the same thing, except my grandmother was seven when she moved from Puerto Rico to New York. Both of them lived in New York. This is my other set of grandparents, my mother's side. Neither one of them actually graduated from high school either. They both dropped out as well, and it's a long story, really. But they kind of met each other in high school, kind of started dating and stuff, and decided that they needed to drop out because they were having my aunt. And so it was about 10th or 11th grade when they dropped out of high school and started working and got married. Um, so actually, neither one of my grandparents, neither set ended up staying together. They all got divorced, and most of them found a new partner. But that's time for another story. Anyway, my mother and father neither uh, graduated initially high school either. My mother actually, uh, after a certain amount of years, went back and got her GED, and then started getting like some undergrad classes. So she does have an associate's degree, and she's working on a bachelor's degree right now for business management. Um, but yeah, that being said, my father, his two parents, and my mother's two parents, none of them graduated high school. So I think that's a very interesting talking point for me, and doing this master's program and getting an education and finding something that I really like, and just kind of learning all about it, and taking that route. It's something very new that not a lot of people in my family have done. So I'm definitely kind of trailblazing in that sense. I'm doing something totally new, which I think also makes it a little harder, a little more challenging because I don't have all that support that like most people do. Because if your parents did go to college, they're gonna want their. I mean, my parents did want me obviously to go to college, but they don't know much about the actual environment or the world of college. As to where other people's parents already have been through that, know what it's like, so they can help their children prepare more. um, so I actually have a little legend here. I got blue dots, yellow dots, and pink dots. The blue dots mean that if someone has a blue dot by their name, like there's only these three: my mother, me, and my wife. The blue dot represents having an education of high school diploma or more. The yellow dot means um, any education that's past high school, so some college education. It's again the only ones with the yellow or the blue is me, my wife, and my mother. So no one else has a blue dot or yellow dot. It's kind of hard to see, but and then the pink dot. Um, Point that I saw from some messages from you was that you wanted to know if our parents actually liked, or our family liked, their line of work. So the pink dot is a general sense of happiness or fulfillment that they feel from their work. As you can see, more people have that. So both of my father's parents genuinely liked their work. My father has been a mechanic for since he was 14. He actually picked it up from his father, and he's builds transmissions. He actually likes to race, down the drag strip. So he's always been in cars. He gets a lot of fulfillment from it. Um, my mother never really found like a passion work wise, so she doesn't have that. And then my mother's father, he actually owned a little business in Florida. It was probably 40 years ago. I don't know. And it was like kind of textiles. I think it had something to do with like he made patterns to cut clothing, and he had to like go get some certifications out in California, take some courses and learn that, and he got that license, and then he was able to make his own company, and have the room for all that. And unfortunately, after 20 years, the business was going out of country to China and stuff like that, and so he had to shut down shop. But I remember hearing many stories about how much he loved that work, and he loved how he had his own company, and he thrived, and he loved it very much. My father's father, Fernando II, he worked for the New York City Transit, so he drove buses and stuff like that. And so my father's mother and father actually received a pension from their work. They were in their work for a long time. My father's grandmother, Cremilda, um, she actually worked for at the Helmsley Palace in New York, and she was like a switchboard operator. She managed calls and stuff like that, and she worked there for a really long time, and had a general sense of liking it and liked her coworkers and stuff. So I gave them a pink dot. My mother's father, as I said, had that company. He really loved that, so he has a pink dot. My mother's mother, though, um, Ana Maria, she never really worked too much, and so therefore I don't. She actually is the only one that doesn't have any dots. She doesn't have any of the education dots or the fulfillment dot, and I think that goes to say something. Her and my mother don't have a great relationship, but she's kind of always been one to push people away. So it's interesting to see like a correlation with like least amount of dots here, compared to like me and my wife. We have all three, and I feel like we're generally pretty happy and fulfilled. Um, and just to mention, my dad, Fernando III, very happy with his work. He loves tinkering with cars and figuring out how to make them go faster and all that kind of stuff. Um, though he never finished high school either. And then down here, this is me, Fernando IV, and my wife, Jordan Miranda. And we're both in actually the healthcare. So we work at the same hospital, but she works on the medical floor, general medical, and she's an RN, registered nurse. And she really likes that work. She's been doing it for about 2 years now. Really loves it. It's actually part of her family's kind of work history. And I think if I did this project on her family, it would look completely different from what my family looks like. And I thought that was very interesting. I have a very unorthodox or unusual kind of family history with kind of education level and like following in our parents' footsteps. My mother and father didn't follow either one of their parents in their career decisions, and I didn't follow my father, which I was actually kind of discouraged from getting into the cars from my mother and father. They would always tell me that they don't want me, picking up wrenches and whatnot, and getting under the cars, and kind of spending my life doing that. So they certainly pushed me and my two sisters to go to school and find like a job or a career where you could work less, not bust your back working, and make a good amount of money and have a healthy life. And then if you like what you're doing, it makes it all that much better. Um, and so as I was saying, got off track a little bit, but I work on the floor. I'm actually working on inpatient psych ward. I really like that work. I have got a lot of fulfillment from it. There are a lot of hard times and a lot of struggles, and a lot of dealing with addicts and stuff is pretty hard. But there are those people that I do kind of make a breakthrough with, or the healthcare team makes a breakthrough with, and then they really do change their lives. And that's like all the more reason why I kind of want to do this with counseling, and get this license, and try my hand at being a counselor and helping facilitate people with life needs, which once again is very different from being a mechanic or owning a certain business, or working on the transit system. That like none of that is anything like what I do or will do. And funny little thing here with Cremilda, I actually gave her a half a pink dot because I think honestly, like both of my father's parents, if they could have chose, let's say, a dream job, they probably wouldn't have chose what they were doing. I have fair reason to believe that they would have chosen something completely different. But given the circumstances and where they had to start from in life, and where they were, making decent, they had a reliable job, making decent money, and so they were happy with that, and they were, definitely fulfilled with that. Trying to think of any other points that I need to make. But the major note that I took from this assignment, I really liked this assignment. I really liked having it kind of drawn down. I had to go to my parents and ask a lot of information about my grandparents and stuff like that, and I'd learned a lot of things that I never knew about my grandparents from this assignment. But yeah, one thing is just seeing me and my wife just happen to have the three dots. My mother has two, and everyone else but my mother's mother, Anna Maria here, has one. So I definitely think there's a correlation between, having this education is obviously a major key to success in life. And then, having that happiness in life, I think that's like the general number one thing is happiness. If you find fulfillment in life, that's the best way to live it, and that's how you get the most out of it, being happy and doing things that make you happy. So I think um, all these dots are very important, and having these dots can have a correlation with your kind of well-being and your general just happiness in life, and not having them probably has a correlation with non-satisfactory life conditions or past. But I really did like this assignment, and thank you.